of bricks. No longer does art have a sacred status. No longer does it raise us to a higher moral or spiritual plane. It is just one human gesture among others, no more meaningful than a laugh or a shout.
I think they're making fun of us. It's a pile of bricks.
Art once made a cult of beauty. Now we have a cult of ugliness instead. Since the world is disturbing, art should be disturbing too. Those who look for beauty in art are just out of touch with modern realities. Sometimes the intention is to shock us, but what is shocking first time round is boring and vacuous when repeated. This makes art into an elaborate joke, though one that by now has ceased to be funny. Yet the critics go on endorsing it, afraid to say that the emperor has no clothes. Creative art is not achieved just like that, simply by having an idea. Of course, ideas can be interesting and amusing, but this doesn't justify the appropriation of the label art. If a work of art is nothing more than an idea, anybody can be an artist, and any object can be a work of art. There is no longer any need for skill, taste, or creativity. People accepted Duchamp at his own valuation. I think he did not get rid of art, he just got rid of creativity. However, Duchamp's works are still influencing the course of art today. Artist Michael Craig Martin, who taught several of the young British artists whose work dominates the art world, followed Duchamp's example with his own seminal work called An Oak Tree. This consists of a glass of water on a shelf, with a text explaining why it is an oak tree. When I first entered St. Peter's and confronted Michelangelo's Pietà, for me that was a transporting experience. My life was changed by this. Do you think that someone can have the same experience with Duchamp's urinal, or perhaps with your oak tree, which is, after all, a similar thing?
I know that when I was a teenager and I first came upon Duchamp, and I first came upon the ready-mades, I was absolutely stunned in amazement. I don't think people are overwhelmed by a sense of beauty when they see the urinal. It's not meant to be beautiful, but that doesn't mean that there isn't something about it that doesn't captivate the imagination. And I think captivate the imagination is the key to what an artwork seeks to do. Duchamp felt that art had become too interested in techniques, too interested in optics. He felt that it had become intellectually and morally corrupt. Now, his reason for making an artwork that didn't fit the system was not cynicism. It was in order to say, I'm trying to make an art that denies all of the things that people say art should have, because I'm trying to say that the central question of art rests somewhere else.
I take the point that things had to change, and Duchamp was trying to change them, but what was he trying to change them to?
Well, he could never, in his wildest dreams, have imagined that what would happen, or that he himself, I'm sure he had no idea how central the thing was that he had stumbled upon, that he had come upon. Essentially, that a work of art is a work of art because we think of it as such. I also think it's important to say that the notion of beauty has been extended to include things that would not have been thought of. That's part of the artist's function, is to make beautiful, make one see something as beautiful, something that nobody thought was beautiful up until now.
Right, like a can of shit.
Well, I'm not sure that it's beautiful, but if you take an example that's not trying to be beautiful, if you take, say, Jeff Koons, Jeff Koons has done some things which are truly astoundingly beautiful.
Well, tonight's so much kitsch to me, but kitsch with sugar on.
This is the subject matter of his work, not the substance of his work.
What is the use of this art? What does it help people to do?
I think it, hopefully, it allows people to see the world in which they are living in a way that gives it more meaning to them. And it's not the world of an ideal world, of some other world, some better place, but of the here and now, of the world that they're in, and of trying to live more at ease within the world that they're given.
So, the art of today shows us the world as it is, the here and now and all its imperfections. But is the result really art? Surely something is not a work of art just because it offers a slice of reality, ugliness included, and calls itself art. Art needs creativity, and creativity is about sharing. It is a call to others to see the world as the artist sees it. That is why we find beauty in the naive art of children. Children are not giving us ideas in the place of creative images, nor are they wallowing in ugliness. They are trying to affirm the world as they see it and to share what they feel. Something of the child's pure delight in creation survives in every true work of art. But creativity is not enough, and the skill of the true artist is to show the real in the light of the ideal, and so transfigure it. This is what Michelangelo achieves in his great portrayal of David. But when we encounter a concrete cast of the David, perhaps as part of some garden arrangement, it is not beautiful at all, for it lacks the essential ingredient of creativity. Discussions of the kind I have been having are dangerous. In our democratic culture, people often think it is threatening to judge another person's taste. Some are even offended by the suggestion that there is a difference between good and bad taste, or that it matters what you look at, or read, or listen to. But this doesn't help anybody. There are standards of beauty which have a firm base in human nature, and we need to look for them and build them into our lives.
Maybe people have lost their faith in beauty because they have lost their belief in ideals. All there is, they are tempted to think, is the world of appetite. There are no values other than utilitarian ones. Something has a value if it has a use. And what's the use of beauty?
All art is absolutely useless, wrote Oscar Wilde, who intended his remark as praise. For Wilde, beauty was a value higher than usefulness. People need useless things just as much as, even more than, they need things with a use. Just think of it. What is the use of love, of friendship, of worship? None whatsoever. And the same goes for beauty. Our consumer society puts usefulness first, and beauty is no better than a side effect. Since art is useless, it doesn't matter what you read, what you look at, what you listen to. We are besieged by messages on every side, titillated, tempted by appetite, never at rest. And that is one reason why beauty is disappearing from our world. Getting and spending, wrote Wordsworth, we lay waste our powers. In our culture today, the advert is more important than the work of art, and artworks often try to capture our attention as adverts do, by being brash or outrageous, like this bejeweled platinum skull by Damien Hirst. Like adverts, today's works of art aim to create a brand, even if they have no product to sell except themselves.
Beauty is assailed from two directions, by the cult of ugliness in the arts and by the cult of utility in everyday life. These two cults come together in the world of modern architecture.
At the turn of the 20th century, architects, like artists, began to be impatient with beauty and to put utility in its place.
The American architect Louis Sullivan expressed the credo of the modernists when he said that form follows function. In other words, stop thinking about the way a building looks and think instead about what it does.
Sullivan's doctrine has been used to justify the greatest crime against beauty that the world has yet seen, and that is the crime of modern architecture. I grew up near Reading, which was a charming Victorian town with terraced streets and Gothic churches crowned by elegant public buildings and smart hotels. But in the 1960s, things began to change. Here, in the centre, the homely streets were demolished to make way for office blocks, a bus station and car parks, all designed without consideration for beauty. And the result proves as clearly as can be that if you consider only utility, the things you build will soon be useless.
This building is boarded up because nobody has a use for it. Nobody has a use for it because nobody wants to be in it. Nobody wants to be in it because the thing is so damned ugly.
Everywhere you turn, there is ugliness and mutilation. The offices and bus station have been abandoned. The only things at home here are the pigeons fouling the pavements. Everything has been vandalized.
But we shouldn't blame the vandals. This place was built by vandals, and those who added the graffiti merely finished the job.
Most of our towns and cities have areas like this, in which buildings erected merely for their utility have rapidly become useless. Not that architects learned from the disaster. When the public began to react against the brutal concrete style of the 1960s, architects simply replaced it with a new kind of junk. Glass walls hung on steel frames with absurd details that don't match. The result is another kind